The night his father left, the wind howled through the cracked window like it was trying to say something no one else dared to speak. 12-year-old Eli Carter stood frozen in the doorway of their small apartment, clutching the strap of his worn-out school bag, watching his father's back disappear down the dimly lit hallway. There was no dramatic goodbye, no hug, no promise to return. Just a quiet click of the door and a silence so heavy it pressed against Eli's chest until breathing felt like work. In that moment, Eli didn't cry. He didn't scream. He simply listened, to the echo of footsteps fading away, and to a small, trembling voice inside him whispering, "Don't let this be the end." Eli grew up on the edge of a city most people only drove past. It was a place of flickering streetlights, aging brick buildings, and dreams that learned to whisper instead of shout. His mother, Mary Ann, worked double shifts at a nursing home, coming home with tired eyes and hands that smelled faintly of disinfectant and kindness. She never spoke badly about Eli's father. Instead, she filled the apartment with small acts of love, warm dinners when she could manage them, notes tucked into Eli's backpack, and a smile that tried, even on the hardest days, to remind him that they were still a family. But at night, when she thought Eli was asleep, he heard her crying softly into her pillow, and the sound etched itself into his heart. School became harder after that. Not because the lessons changed, but because Eli did. Teachers noticed he was quieter, more withdrawn. Classmates whispered questions he pretended not to hear. Why did his dad leave? Is something wrong with him? Eli learned the art of invisibility, how to sit in the back, how to keep his head down, how to make himself small. But there was one place where he didn't feel invisible at all: the old church down the street, abandoned by most but not forgotten by him. The church had been closed for years, its doors chained shut, its paint peeling like old memories. But behind it, in a small courtyard hidden from the road, Eli discovered something magical, the way his voice sounded when it bounced off the stone walls. The first time he sang there, it surprised him. It wasn't planned. He was humming a tune his mother used to sing while cooking, and suddenly the melody came alive, fuller and stronger than he'd ever heard it. For the first time since his father left, Eli felt something loosen inside his chest. Singing didn't erase the pain, but it gave it a place to go. From that day on, the courtyard became his refuge. After school, before heading home, Eli would stand there and sing. He sang softly at first, afraid someone might hear and laugh. But as weeks passed, his voice grew bolder. He sang old soul songs, hymns he remembered from childhood, and melodies he made up on the spot. Each note carried pieces of his story, loneliness, longing, and a fragile hope that refused to disappear. Music became his secret language, a way to speak when words felt too heavy. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of gold and purple, Eli noticed someone sitting on a bench nearby. It was Mr. Thomas, an elderly man who lived in the neighborhood and was known for fixing broken things, bikes, radios, sometimes even spirits. Eli froze mid-song, embarrassed. But instead of telling him to stop, Mr. Thomas smiled, eyes shining with something like recognition. "Don't stop," he said gently. "That voice, it sounds like it's carrying a lot." Over time, Mr. Thomas became a quiet presence in Eli's life. He listened without interrupting, offering advice only when asked. He taught Eli how to breathe properly while singing, how to let the sound come from deep within. "Your voice isn't just sound," he told him one afternoon. "It's truth. And truth has a way of finding people who need it." Eli didn't fully understand what he meant, but the words stayed with him. Life, however, didn't suddenly become easier. Money grew tighter. There were nights when dinner was a simple bowl of soup, and mornings when the electricity flickered uncertainly. Eli watched his mother grow thinner, her smile more tired. Guilt began to creep in, guilt for wanting more, guilt for dreaming when survival seemed like the priority. He considered giving up singing, thinking it was selfish to chase something so uncertain. But every time he tried to silence his voice, the sadness grew heavier. The unexpected turn came on a cold winter morning when Eli's school announced a citywide talent showcase. The winner would receive a scholarship to a performing arts program, something that felt impossibly out of reach. Eli laughed bitterly when he saw the flyer. Kids like him didn't win things like that. Yet that evening, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table, holding the flyer with trembling hands. "You should try," she said softly. "I hear you sing when you think I'm asleep. Your voice, it reminds me that hope still lives here. Fear battled hope inside him. What if he failed? What if people laughed? But something in his mother's eyes, a mix of pride and desperation, pushed him forward. With Mr. Thomas's encouragement, Eli signed up. The weeks leading up to the audition were filled with doubt. He practiced in the courtyard until his voice grew hoarse, pouring every emotion into each note. He wasn't just singing to win, he was singing to survive. The audition day arrived, and the theater felt enormous, its lights blinding. Eli stood backstage, heart pounding, listening to other contestants warm up, voices confident, polished, trained. His hands shook as he stepped onto the stage. For a moment, the fear threatened to swallow him whole. Then he remembered the night his father left, the sound of the door closing, and the promise he'd made to himself not to let that moment define him. He took a deep breath and began to sing. The song started quietly, almost like a whisper. It told a story of loss, of a boy waiting by the door, of unanswered questions and nights filled with tears. As Eli's voice grew stronger, so did the story. He sang of his mother's sacrifices, of kindness found in unexpected places, of a voice that refused to be silenced. By the time he reached the final note, the theater was silent, not the uncomfortable kind, but the kind filled with awe. The judges were visibly moved. One wiped away a tear. Another leaned forward, as if trying to catch every last word. Eli didn't know if he'd won, but he knew something had changed. He'd shared his truth, and it had mattered. When the results were announced later that day, Eli's name echoed through the hall. He'd won the scholarship. The emotional climax came not on stage, but at home. Eli rushed into the apartment, breathless, eyes shining. His mother listened as he told her everything, and then she broke down, holding him like she never wanted to let go. Your father may have left, she whispered through tears, but you stayed. And your voice stayed with you. News of Eli's performance spread through the neighborhood. People who had never spoken to him before stopped to congratulate him. The abandoned church courtyard filled with listeners, neighbors, strangers, even children who saw themselves in his story. Eli began singing not just for himself, but for them. He sang for the kids who felt invisible, for the parents working too hard, for anyone who had ever felt left behind. Years later, Eli stood on a much bigger stage, lights brighter than he'd ever imagined. But before every performance, he closed his eyes and remembered where it all began. The cracked window, the empty doorway, the quiet promise of hope. He understood then what Mr. Thomas had meant. His voice had found people who needed it, just as it had found him when he needed it most. The story of Eli Carter isn't just about a boy who could sing. It's about resilience, about the power of kindness, and about how hope can survive even the deepest abandonment. His father left him, yes, but his voice never left hope. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change a life, and maybe, in a small but meaningful way, the world.